All right, so I know class was a little intense, and let's just go ahead and kind of review a little bit of what today was. And I know this is for tomorrow, this is for Fridays. Friday, your Edpuzzle. You need to have your book out, your notebook out, just to show your work. Show me how you're doing all of your work here. And first thing we're going to go through, and I'm going to introduce a couple vocabulary concepts, okay? Just a couple vocabulary concepts. So go ahead and graph this one for me. Y equals negative x squared plus 2x plus 1, okay? Now, you're going to go ahead and do what first? Negative b over 2a, right? Which you're going to get negative 2 over negative 2, which is going to equal 1 whole, 1. So your vertex is going to have 1, your x. Plug in 1 here and here. 1 squared is 1, but the negative comes, just imagine that's like a negative 1 there. So 1 times negative 1. So that'll be negative 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1. 3 and negative 1, that's going to become 2. All right, so your vertex should be 1, negative 2. But this idea we're going to talk about in a second, negative b over 2a. We're going to give it an actual name. It does give you what? It gives you the x of your vertex. Doesn't it give you the x of your vertex? But we're going to talk more about what that actually does mean. Then you would go ahead and draw excuse me. Go ahead and draw your chart. You're going to label x and y. So you have x and y. Okay. In the middle is going to be your vertex. And I keep calling this kind of a, I'm going to do this because it's almost like a mirror. Remember, it's mirroring. It's a symmetry. All right, the mirror of symmetry. And we're going to talk about the vocab word in just a second. So 2 and 3, and then I went up 2, and then I'm going to go down 2. All right. Now we're going to go back to our problem. I'm going to rewrite it so we have it here handy. I'm going to do the 0 one first. It's the easiest one to do. 0, if I plug it all in, we should know that anything that is attached to x is going to go away. All that's left is the 1. If 1 is there, we know 1 is also there. All right, let's plug in the 3 because we just don't want to mess with negatives. It doesn't bother us, the negatives, but I just like to keep it clean. 3 squared is going to be 9, but then the negative comes into play. Plus 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1. Negative 9 plus 6 plus 1. This is going to be 7. Negative 9 plus 7, negative 2. And this is also going to be negative 2. Your mirror here. So let's go ahead and talk about graphing this. If I'm going to graph this, my x is going to go from 3 to negative 1 all the way to negative 2. So it doesn't have to be too crazy large. And on this graph, I'm going to show you some new vocabulary. So first of all, let's graph our vertex. Actually, hold on. So I have to go, my x is going to go all the way to positive 3 and all the way to left to 1. So negative 1 would be 1 there. All right, that x, and then all the way to 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. I think this is important that you just understand your x and y axis. Your y axis is going to go from negative 2 all the way to positive 2. Okay? Negative 1, negative 2, positive 1, positive 2. Okay? All right, now let's go ahead and graph this. So 1, 2 is my vertex, over 1, up 2. Now, if we look at our A, is this going to be happy or sad? Remember, it's negative, so that means it's going to be a sad face. It's going to be a frown. Okay, and you'll see it as you graph. All right, 0, 1. And what is this called? Our y-intercept. Isn't this our y-intercept? Okay. Then, negative 1, negative 2, positive 3, negative 2. Oops, I forgot this one too. Over 2 up 1. Okay, so then I have this. And there, and it would keep on going too. So you see my quadratic with 5 points. Now, I want to talk about this mirror we have, okay? So I want you to do this on your sheet. This is the mirror. This is the symmetry. You see how it reflects kind of over? It's the symmetry that's happening. Now, if we were to graph, if you remember graphing back in the day, I know I'm gonna zoom in real quick on a side note here. If I said to graph x equals 2, graph that. How would you graph it? I used to tell you one letter means 1 point. So you'd go on the x-axis to 2, and your line would be straight up and down. And that's the graph of x equals 2. It's a straight vertical line, all right? It's interesting. But if you remember when we talked about all the points on this line, if I told you to graph all these points, guess what they all have in common? Over 2 up 1, over 2 up 2, over 2 up 3, over 2 down 1, over 2 down 2. So they all would have x in common, right? They would all have the same x, wherever it is on the y-intercept, but they would all have x in common. I'm going back to this concept because I'm just trying to talk about this vocabulary. This guy right here is where we started through the vertex. So if I said here, the 1, if I said to graph this line, isn't this x equals 1? Because wouldn't we put a point here and go straight up and down? So this formula is actually called the axis of symmetry. And that's the new vocabulary word. The axis of symmetry, which is always going to be straight up and down. It's always going to be x equals something, just like this graph would be. And for this one, the axis of symmetry, when we do the formula, we got x equals 1. Kind of confusing, but all it's telling you, the axis of symmetry, all it's telling you is where is the mirror located. What if the axis of symmetry, what if x was -1? Then it'd be right here, and everything would be symmetrical off of that, okay? So no big deal. We're just going to write that here. Axis of symmetry. Okay. A little interesting, a little bizarre, but no worries. Don't worry about that. Okay. Let's do another one. All right, let me give you one more. We'll have a short, nice little Friday. I don't want to give you too much. 2x squared. Let me write out a good one here. Sorry. Plus x minus 3. All right, find the vertex first. To first find the vertex, let's get into our vocab. You first must find the axis of symmetry, right? You first must find the x value, which is called the axis of symmetry. All right, that's where it's going to tell you this axis right here. We have a new axis on our graph. We have an x-axis, we have a y-axis, and now we have an axis of symmetry. Where is your mirror located? Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Negative b over 2a. Uh-oh. Are you going to freak out when you see something like this? Or are you going to tackle it? Are you going to go after it? So what is this going to equal? All right. When I do this, I'm going to get negative 1 over 4. Can I turn that into a decimal? How about there? How about that? So negative 0.25. Don't run away from the challenge. Don't be scared. Let's go. Okay. Now let's plug it in. So what I'm going to do now, whenever I have this craziness, I'm going to use my tools. All right. So let's go ahead and use the tools that are given to us. Let me go ahead and get in here. And all right, I'm going to go, first of all, 2 times, I wonder if I can put this in parentheses, if it'll let me. I'm going to try to get a little more specific with what's going on here. I think I can. Maybe not. So here's the deal. I'm going to go ahead and figure out first, what is 0.25 squared? Isn't that what negative 0.25 is? X squared. All right, so then I got 0.0625. Okay, and if you're lost, all I did right now was go over what this, I plugged it in right here, and I squared it. All right, let me move that down. So let's go back here, and now I'm going to go ahead and multiply the 2 times what this was squared. All right, you're just using your calculator. Don't freak out. So I'm going to do 0.0. I wish I could just move this up here. There we go. 625, right, times 2 equals. Now I get 0.125. That's great. 0.125. 0.125 plus, all right? So what is going on here? I just did all of this right here in the calculator. Now I'm going to do plus just x. That's kind of nice. But remember, it's negative. It's negative, so I'm going to subtract it. So really, I'm going to go, I could do plus minus, but I'm just going to go minus 0.25. All right, so then I got a negative here. And then what's the last part? Minus 3. Interesting. Okay, now I'm going to go back here and go minus 3. And what do I get? Negative 3.125. Don't be scared of that. Let's embrace this challenge, okay? Negative, what was it again? Oh, goodness. Negative 3.125. Negative 3.125. All right. Now, I'm going to have some fun. You guys, this is your vertex, right? So let's go ahead and handle this. Let me show you something. So now take a look at this. I have this up here. So I'm going to go ahead and deal with this. Let me move this out of the way. Get out of the way. All right, sorry about that. So when I look at this problem here, I'm going to go ahead and realize that this is the graph. I just typed in that whole thing here. Where's my vertex? I wonder if it'll tell me. Look at negative 0.25 and negative 3.125. That's what we just did. But hold on, this is what I want to talk about. These two guys right here. Interesting, all right? These are your roots. They're called your roots, or they're also called zeros, or they're also called your solutions, all right? We've talked about this. We've talked about what this means a little bit, but they're the roots. Wherever you touch the x-axis is an important piece of information. How many roots are there? For this one, there's 2 solutions. There's 2 zeros, or there's 2 roots. Now, if we looked at this problem closely to begin with, if it really asked you, if it said, what are the solutions to this problem, you wouldn't just go about and start graphing this, okay? Because look at this. You can actually solve this. I'm going to move it down here using factoring, using X games. You can do X games. So if I have here, if I did this and I go ahead and put negative 6 on the top, 1 on the bottom, 3 and negative 2. I'm going to start it with 2x plus 3 equals 0. 2x minus 2 equals 0. If I go ahead and add 2, or excuse me, subtract 3, we get 2x equals negative 3, divide 2, x equals negative 1.5. All right. For this one, add 2, 2x equals 2, divide 2, x equals 1. So, just about done here. 1.5 and 1. So let's go back to my graph. Look what we had, negative 1.5 and 1. My y's are 0, but my x's are here, okay? So it's something interesting that I want you to understand the vocabulary. Your axis of symmetry is negative 0.25. That's where it's going right here, all right? And then your roots are these two guys right here.